Welcome back to Sonny Talk Spurs, and today we're addressing the problem of Richarlison. But before we get into this one, please, if you are new around here, drop a like and a subscribe on the channel. I would really appreciate it. Now, let's get into the video. Now, this is already my second video titled The Problem With. The previous was about Son. So if you haven't checked that one out, go and watch that after you've watched this. But there are reasons I'm doing videos along these lines. It's really not a surprise at all. Tottenham finished 8th last season, and the only player who really turned up was Harry Kane, scored 30 Premier League goals. And apart from maybe Emerson Royale, no one else really turned up and proved themselves to the club, and hence that's why we finished as low as we did. So now let's focus on our Brazilian forward and start by looking at what happened with Richarlison last summer. So finally, Spurs had a backup striker to take the burden off of Harry Kane for the price of around £60 million. And you think for, a player that we were signing from Everton who... Are they a rival or are they just another Premier League club? Quite an all-right pickup, you'd say, in the modern market, the way it's going. I mean, look at this summer, for example. And, he was aged in his mid-20s, 25, he's now 26. And you think, this guy could actually replace Harry Kane, potentially, if we were to see him go to, say, a Bayern Munich or a Real Madrid or a Manchester United. Richarlison could then be the player to take the mantle off of him, and it makes that transition period a little bit easier. He also turned down Chelsea last summer, who were looking for a replacement up top for Romelu Lukaku. And I remember there was a few debates going around because Gabriel Jesus had signed for Arsenal. People were comparing them because they were both Brazilian and saying who's got the better striker. And a lot of people were actually saying Richarlison might have been the better deal. He obviously leads the line for Brazil, the national team. So people were positive. But we all know how it eventually did unfold. So Richarlison bagged one goal in the Premier League, and that was against Liverpool. Obviously, he infamously took his shirt off again, did the little pigeon dance, and a few minutes later, we lost the game to a Diogo Jota goal. So that was fantastic. And then he bagged a brace earlier on in the season against Marseille in a Champions League group game. And I'll be honest, he was fantastic that game. This was the game where we're like, here he is, Richarlison. He's, new on the scene at Tottenham. This is what we're going to expect from our Brazilian playmaker. And, it just wasn't to be in the end. It just unfolded in a lot of different ways. And I think a lot of Tottenham fans were surprised because usually when we have signed players of his ilk, they've gone and done, good things, especially forwards. We're quite famous for having good forwards. But when we pay a bit of money for players, such as Ndombele as well, it seems that the pressure does get to them. So then after all this, he was obviously labelled a Premier League flop, which was quite understandable because he didn't live up to the price tag. For £60 million, you've got to be scoring more than 3 goals in about 35 appearances. I think there was a few more, maybe 40. It's just not good enough. And I know people will say, but this and that. But as a player, you need to be scoring more than that. I think I would have respected him a bit more if he got around the 10 mark. But as I am going to go into this video, I don't think a lot of this lies at the feet of Richarlison. It's a mixture. It's a lots of different factors. And I actually think a lot of the blame has to be aimed at Antonio Conte. And Richarlison has been speaking to the media over the last few days. And that's what sort of sparked me to do this video. I had something in my head about doing a Richarlison deep dive. But then when these quotes came out, I was like, I've got to jump on this. This is a must because what he said has been quite eye-opening, I would say. So he had a few things to say about the previous campaign that we've all just lived and watched through. And firstly, he spoke about that first season at the club. He said, the club signed me. They spent a lot of money, even with some stress I had there. I don't have much to complain about. I just owe them. But this is quite promising. He's not ready to quit on Tottenham just yet. And I do actually back Richarlison to have a better season this term, under a better manager for an attacking sense in Ange Postecoglou. And I can just see him leading that line when needed, depending on the Kane scenario. He will be much better. He will score more goals. It can't be as bad as what we've just lived through, surely. And also, a player like Maddison is going to be perfect. You know, we've been screaming, I've said it on previous videos, we need an attacking midfielder for players like this who are going to thread through balls and just improve his output drastically, as well as, you know, Maddison's assists will be sky high, hopefully. So it will just be a better attacking unit. I remember last summer, people going, you've got Kane, you've got Sonny, and you've got Richarlison. That's a fantastic front three. But it just didn't work out like that because of Antonio Conte. I've also heard many Celtic fans and pundits and, you know, journalists say that Richarlison is actually the perfect forward for an Ange system. And he could be like our version of Kyogo. So that's going to be quite interesting. He also then went on to talk about his relationship with our former head coach, Antonio Conte. And this is quite interesting reading. I had some fights with Conte for not having a sequence. We decided inside the changing room. I gave up talking in the interview that I needed time. Then I apologised and told him he could punish me. He gave me a hard time to show the group firmness and that he was still in charge. It's his way of dealing with the group. He spent almost 2 hours, 2 hours, just scolding me in front of everyone there. I mean, that would shake anyone's confidence down to the core, and I'm not surprised how he felt. Obviously, a lot of what he's saying here was about, you probably remember, throwback, he did an interview with, I think, a Brazilian outlet, I'll go with that, and he sort of said that, you know, I'm in an okay form, and he was in an okay form. He was playing more defensively in this sort of like held back wing position, and Conte just dropped him and brought back, I think it was either Sonny or Kulusevski, brought them back into the team. And he was saying, like, you know, I think he summed up the scenario using an expletive, so I won't repeat that. But I wasn't, you know, I think a lot of fans were surprised. Like, why have you dropped him? He's doing an okay job, you know. He wasn't getting the goals and assists, which a lot of people, if they don't watch Tottenham, will look at the stats and go, well, he's not doing this. But he was putting up pretty much a good fight in a defensive aspect, so you couldn't knock him, and also that would then knock his confidence, so I did feel sorry for the guy. And he also gave some quotes about Conte's sacking in general, and Richarlison said, after they sent him away, I sent him a message. I apologise because he was the guy who asked me to be hired, and I couldn't help him as much as I thought. The least I could do is apologise for what happened there. I don't know why he's apologising. Conte literally might have wanted him, but then he forced him to play in weird positions. You know, generally, I think Richarlison is a striker. Play through the middle. He has been, in his time at Everton, pushed out on the wing. He was then at Tottenham pushed out on the wing. But he didn't get a chance to show what he could do through the middle. There was one time, it was against Sheffield United, but then by the time he came into this game, his confidence was probably shattered. And I just can't blame him, really, for some of the situations he had to go through. You know, there was a lot of pressure on him at the time, you know. £60 million price tag, moving from another Premier League club, wearing the number 9, being the understudy to Harry Kane. That's a lot of things to have on your back. And, you know, he's got a lot of things on his back. He's got a tattoo of Neymar and R9 on his back. So, putting all this on top of it as well, I feel sorry for the guy. You know, I said earlier on in the video, you know, a lot of stuff does fall at his feet, and it does. You know, he's a professional footballer. He's a good footballer. But I do think Conte really shattered this guy's dreams and aspirations. So Conte basically played him out of position for most of his first season at the club, you know. He sort of was a winger to cover defensively for some of our fullbacks. And also, when he did come on, he had the shortest cameos in the world to try and make an impact. So I just don't feel like he has really been... We haven't seen the real Richarlison yet. And he's been at the club for a year. And he's still only 26. He has so much time on his side. And I'm just backing Ange to really get the best out of him. Finally, he mentioned the difference between Everton and Tottenham Hotspur as football clubs. He said there is a lot of difference. The CT, the stadium, everything is different. What's missing are the titles. We have to be more ambitious. I hope that this season we focus on a cup, lift a title. The fans support us and deserve to celebrate. You know, he's fully Spurs. He does really love us. And it's good to hear this sort of fighting talk. One thing that Richarlison has, which I love, is his grit and determination. And people go, oh, he's rattled. No, that's called fight. If it was one of your players, like Bruno Fernandes at Man United, people would be going, oh, that's a good fight, that. Richarlison is like, oh, he's rattled. Oh, he's done a pigeon dance. I just find it absolute waffle. It's pure football Twitter nonsense. And I think people need to get a life and just, you know, I'm enjoying this player. I think he's really going to come on leaps and bounds this year. I just think people are too quick. I mean, look at Jack Grealish, for God's sake. Jack Grealish first year, everyone was slating him, you know, price tag, British record. Now, look how he's gone under Pep. And I'm not saying Pep is like Ange at all. I'm saying there's a chance that maybe Richarlison could thrive under a better coach. But I am interested to see how he will be deployed. You know, I assume our front three going into the season, as long as Kane stays, is Kane, Son and Kulusevski. So then will he come off the bench? You know, you also got Manuel Solomon. But then we've got options. And a big team, and a team who has aspirations like Tottenham, needs options from the bench. And he is the future of Tottenham, really. If Kane goes next year on a free, he will be that starting striker. And good luck to him. I can back him to probably take that mantle eventually. And also, people will then go, but look at his, goal record at Everton and Watford. We're a better side than Everton and Watford. You know, we've got better players around him. As I say, I mentioned Maddison. He will thrive eventually. I am backing him this season. But what are your predictions for Richarlison? Will he flop again? Will he thrive under Ange? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you have enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it. Subscribe to the channel. I've been Sonny, and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.